Hello and welcome to our second panel in honor of Women's History Month 2022. Our theme for this month is Breaking the Bias, Philly Women at Work, and it focuses on the way Philly women are showing up daily, challenging traditional notions of what women ought to be and can do. Today's panel focuses specifically on how women lead and our women leaders in the School District of Philadelphia. My name is Dr. Sabria Jubilee, and I am the Chief for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. As a woman who is Philly born and bred and leads at SDP, I am thrilled to hear from these dynamic women, my colleagues representing core areas of leadership throughout our district. Joining me today as a co-moderator is one of our very own students, Kyra Graham, a student at Kensington Kappa. Hi, Kyra. So what we'll do today in terms of logistics is we'll give our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we'll turn the discussion over. I'll turn the discussion over to Kyra, who will get deeper into our questions, and then we'll conclude. So just starting off first with our first panelist, Dr. Evelyn Nunez, who is our Chief of Schools. Dr. Nunez, can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey? Specifically, what is your Philly connection and how did you become interested in educational leadership?
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As Dr. Jubilee said, my name is Evelyn Nunez. I am the Chief of Schools for the School District of Philadelphia. I am a product of the School District of Philadelphia. I knew very early in my K-12 experience that I wanted to enter education. I would say as early as middle school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I think it stemmed from the fact that my mother wanted to be a teacher and never was able to achieve that goal. I immediately after graduating from undergrad school with my bachelor's returned to the School District of Philadelphia, started as a bilingual teacher. And again, very early in my career, I think it was my second year teaching, my principal at the time saw leadership in me. And she said, someday you're going to make an amazing principal. While I did not believe her at the time, she continued to, she saw some leadership skills in me and believed in me, and immediately began to coach me, to mentor me, develop me, and empowered me at the school level, to the point that 2 years later, I got my master's degree, continued on in my career as a teacher coach, later principal, chief academic officer, superintendent in the charter sector, and then ultimately returned to the district as a principal, then assistant superintendent, and in the last 2 years as the chief of schools. I think that's all I know. And whenever I think about doing something else in this world, there's nothing else I'd rather do than be in the career of education.
Thank you so much. You are giving us a prime example of women inspiring women, and particularly the mamas. Mamas get us motivated. So thank you so much, Dr. Nunez. Our second panelist today is Amelia Coleman Brown, soon to be Dr. Coleman Brown, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Learning Network 11. Dr. Coleman, I'm going to call you that now, Dr. Coleman Brown. I can do that. Can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey, specifically your Philly connection, and how you became interested in educational leadership?
Yes, thank you. Let's speak it into existence. So I serve currently as an assistant superintendent in Learning Network 11 in the neighborhood where I was born and raised. So I am blessed to be serving in this neighborhood and in this capacity. And I would have to say that my mother planted a seed in me as well, right? Going to school and doing your best work was not an option in the Coleman household. So she planted that seed very early, and I've had the opportunity to fall in love with teaching over and over again, and with education over and over again, because my mother, she made great sacrifices, and she made sure that every school that I attended was filled with love. A love of learning and a love of people. And I've been in love with education since kindergarten. I've been afforded an opportunity to work in various roles across the city of Philadelphia. I worked as an assistant director at Early Childhood Center. I worked as a teacher. My first teaching experience was at Lee Elementary. I worked as a coach. So I had a very, I guess, a typical traditional pathway to leadership. Although and I'll share this later, my beginnings were not as typical as some of the leaders that have the pleasure of supporting system leadership to date. And yeah, I can't imagine, like Dr. Nunez said, I can't imagine serving and leading anywhere other than Philadelphia. It is a privilege.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that community of love and letting love really guide. Our next panelist is Dr. Bridget Bujak, principal of the Link High School. Dr. Bujak, same question for you. What can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey? What's your Philly connection, and how did you become interested in educational leadership?
Well, thank you, Dr. Jubilee. And I would just want to say it's such an honor to be here with all of these powerful ladies in this Zoom right now. So thank you. It's an honor. So again, I am the proud principal of the Link High School. And my Philly connection is that I was raised in Philly. I went to school in Philadelphia in private schools. And I really just had a love of learning in a lot of ways, but I really disliked for school at times too, the work ethic it required, but I really did have a love of knowledge because I thought that knowledge is really powerful. And so I've really used that mindset throughout my career and my life journey. And so after college, I thought I was going to go to law school, but I was recruited by a transitional teaching program to teach math for Philadelphia. So they really do work. They really know how to recruit you and get you in. And so I was like, sure, let me try this for a year. You know, law school can wait. That seems like, you know, I can wait a little bit. And I started working at Edison as a math teacher, Edison High School. I was there for 6 years. And let me tell you, it was amazing. My 6 years at Edison. I became a senior sponsor. And I ran PSSA when they had PSSAs in high school. Saturday school, I was a coach. I did yearbook, and I just really immersed myself in the high school comprehensive experience. And so I fell in love with students, and I fell in love with the work. And so, you know, one of the questions later on asked about balance, but it was really not having a good balance because I was just so involved with the work and the love of working with students and fellow teachers and colleagues. So that is how my professional career started, was at Edison. And then I thought through that experience that maybe I could make a difference at a school-wide level. And so that's how I moved into going to school for administration and followed through as an assistant principal at Omni Charter, and now the proud principal at the Link.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Bujak. When I hear that, I hear the power of purpose, right? There are plans that we have in our heart, but the real purpose is what prevails in the end. So I'm glad that you followed your purpose. Last but certainly not least for us, we have Dr. Karen Koski, who is the Deputy Chief of School Operations, among many of the things that she's done in her SDP career. So Dr. Koski, can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey, your Philly connection, and how you became interested in educational leadership?
Thank you, Dr. Jubilee. And again, I echo Dr. Bujak about being around, surrounded by these most brilliant women. And as I get all emotional, the beauty of this, Dr. Jubilee, is that we, in this space, we're actually learning more connections about each other. I'll talk to you, Dr. Bujak. I took my law boards because I couldn't get a teaching job. Didn't do very well, and I got a teaching job the next day. So I didn't know that about you, and now we have that connection. But thank you again for this forum. So I also, like Dr. Nunez, had someone who saw talent, but I was born and raised in North Philadelphia, 12th and Weehawken. Spent every summer in Hunting Park, right on the merry-go-round in those days. I went to Bernie Elementary School. Immediately I became captain of the safety patrol. And I think at that point, being captain of the safety patrol, I still have my little badge. It really too was my mother. Back to you, Dr. Coleman Brown, soon to be, and Dr. Nunez. It's the mother who really saw a sense of leadership, leading with others. And she was a secretary at Dobbins. And being a secretary at Dobbins High School for 22 years, and then 5 years at Kenderton in North Philadelphia, she was a secretary. She just taught me how it is about giving back to our district. And she said, Karen, become a teacher, which I did, right? We listened to our moms. And so I became a teacher in our district. And I too, like Dr. Nunez, I had a principal who just allowed me to take risks, both in my teaching, but also in leadership responsibilities. From that juncture, I became a principal. So I was a principal of 2 schools in our district for 8 years. And then we got a huge grant. Paul Valls, if you remember, one of our former CEOs, right? We got a huge grant and became in charge of leadership development. So developing those who wanted to aspire to be principals. Then became an assistant superintendent in Mount Airy. Did that for a while. And then I went to the operations house and really learned around transportation, facilities, food services. And then Dr. Nunez came here, and so thankful that I pivoted from the actual operations office to now working with Dr. Nunez for her and by her as Deputy Chief of School Operations. And so, you know, we're all learning leaders. I have been around a long time and still have that fire in my belly. I love this district so much, and just giving back of 36 years of my life in our district, 6 years in Camden. So it's just been a beautiful journey in leadership and having those teach me what it really means to be a leader with others in our district.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Koski. I hear legacy and that power of that connection. I mean, you literally have kind of brought introductions full circle by sharing all of the different experiences you've had. So we will continue to get deeper into conversation. I am now going to turn this portion of our panel discussion over to Kyra Graham. Again, Kyra is a student at Kensington Kappa. For those who are just joining us, Kyra, do you want to go ahead and start with the next question?
Yes. Hello. So my first question is, how did you navigate power structures early in your career versus later in your career when you had more formal leadership roles? Ms. Dr. Nunez.
Yeah, so navigating through power structures. I think that very early on in my career, I tend to be kind of quiet in nature. So early in my career, I just listened and observed a lot. I had the privilege of being a teacher coach where I supported about 15 schools across the district. And I trained new teachers. I trained bilingual teachers. That was my title, bilingual teacher coach. And during those 2 years, I spent a lot of time working with principals and really looking at, you know, what systems, structures, procedures they put in place in schools. And while I was there to provide professional development to their teachers, I also observed a lot and many times thought about, why did they make that decision? Right? Never really knew how I was processing all of this, how I was going to have an impact in my career later. But when I look back, I think that was one of the best things I did in those 2 years, was to go to surround myself by great leaders, but to go into a variety of schools and just observe, listen, ask questions, and really process and think about why decisions were made. That truly helped to inform the type of leader that I wanted to be when I first became a principal. So early on, again, it's really listening and thinking and asking questions. I think today, I still continue to be quite quiet until I get a question asked directly to me. But what I've learned more and more is that I have to listen to understand where people are coming from, right? And what I can tell you after 28 years in education, right, that when you start doing this for a while, it's very easy for us to quickly respond. And again, because building relationships are so important, and because everyone comes from a different perspective, it's extremely important that, you know, as a leader, that you're listening to what those around you are saying to you before you respond.
Dr. Coleman.
Yes, I think Dr. Nunez spoke about experience, and I do believe experience is the best teacher. And I would say that I've had the opportunity, I was afforded the opportunity earlier in my career to have engage in various types of leadership positions. And I gained a lot of practice. And I would say with that practice, I really had an opportunity to become more self-aware I learned myself. I learned what I believed in, what I valued, and what I would stand for. And as a result, my emotional intelligence has sharpened. So I would say that because I had those experiences, I really had an opportunity to learn and like define like who I was as a leader early on. It allows me to navigate and to be able to pull levers maybe differently than I would have when I was a teacher at 24. But I would say that my anchor has always been children, the people that I serve, children and teachers. So I still, like, that is still my compass. But I am more aware of how to advocate for them because I've had those early experiences so early in my 20s. And because of that, I think that's a little bit sharper than I probably was and more confident. And to Dr. Nunez's point, and more strategic. And, you know, I listen to figure out when I should jump in or when I should just listen a bit more to better understand. So, yeah, thank you.
Dr. Bridget Bujak.
So I what Dr. Coleman and Dr. Nunez says resonates with me so much. And for me specifically, it's about building relationships, even early on in my career and even now later in my career. For me personally, I think building relationships and a network of people that I can talk to, have be a mirror and a critical thought partner with over the years, and continually developing that set of people to have it grow over time, because I want to keep developing my thoughts and skills and how we look at things. And so for me, the way I've navigated power structures is trying to learn about the power structure and then talking to the people within that structure. And the things that I've learned over time is how to use my voice depending on where I am in the structure, whether I was a teacher, a senior sponsor, an assistant principal, or now principal. I think your voice changes over time and your decision-making power also changes. So for me, it's really important to have those relationships to think through a process and to navigate anything that's in front of me. And always having those critical thought partners have been a crucial part of my journey. And I can't believe it, but this is my 17th year in education. And so I was like, oh my goodness, just thinking about it. And so looking back at my first year at Edison, being a brand new teacher, looking at all of my department chairs, asking for help, to now as a principal, still going to my colleagues and my supervisors for advice and how to even work a budget sometimes. So.
Dr. Koski.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyra. So yeah, I too think about this navigation of power structures by, again, you hear a common theme here about just watching and listening. And I say, you know, watching from the balcony, as Covey's talks about. So just watching leaders lead. And early in my career, right, I was a leader of my classroom as a teacher, right? And so certainly as a classroom teacher, just watching my principal, watching the leadership team, just watching and learning. And again, as Amelia has said, as Amelia Coleman Brown has said, just knowing who you are, being self-aware. I always want to believe and not naive to think that there is positive, you want to assume positive intent, that everyone really has this notion of keeping the children in the forefront of every decision. And we want to believe that's true, but I know we also have work to do. I also live by just suspending assumptions and judgments of others and to really think about any person, any student, that they just come with their best selves. And I certainly try to think about that structure as I've gone through all of my different experiences in our district. So it's okay to be disturbed. It's okay to have discourse. And I certainly watch that and how people really enact that discourse through the different entities of our district.
Okay, so my next question, describe how your leadership style, hold on, I'm sorry. Describe your leadership style and how you lead others. Is it different from your male counterparts? Dr. Nunez?
So when I think about my leadership style, I can't really define it to one. I think that the one that that comes natural to me, and it looks again to what the earlier points made. I think depending on the circumstance and where I was in my career may look a little different. The one that I like to elevate at this time is being a servant leader. You know, we know you can't do this work by yourself, right? And we all need to support each other. I think when I know that when I think about this role that I'm in right now as chief of schools, a big part of my job is to be a connector, right? It's to listen to the assistant superintendents, it's to listen to the needs of principals, it's to listen to the needs of other offices and connect us together. And I try to do that by serving, by reflecting the beliefs of the various parties, if I can call them that, or various departments, by being the voice of principals, assistant superintendents when I'm meeting with central office staff, so that I'm representative of that group. And in the same token, being that voice when meeting with school leaders about what other departments are defining as needs. I think, again, to wrap it up and give others the opportunity to chime in, you know, serving as a connector, serving in a way where I can help get the resources that they need to be able to accomplish the goals that they have for their schools or their networks.
Dr. Coleman?
I'm getting used to this. I want to have to really make sure I get this doctorate on May 4th. Yeah, so I think about that a lot because I really work to be the type of leader that is necessary for the community that I serve. So I would say that I think my principals would say that I'm inspirational, but I like to say that I'm transformational. So I guide and I motivate with this compelling vision around like the needed change that we've been talking a lot about, like the needed change that all people, all children have the opportunity to live their best lives. I know that I make decisions that weigh more on people and pragmatics more than other things, but I believe in intellectual stimulation. I believe in professional development. I believe in that it is our responsibility as educators to get smarter every day. And I love a lot and I care a lot. So like Dr. Nunez said, it's really hard to define our leadership in one word, but those are some of the words that resonate with me. And as far as my male counterpart, I don't know what it is to be a man, but I do know that I was raised in a 7 female household. My mother was a single mother. So there were times where I'm sure she adopted behaviors that are more associated with the male gender. And I'm certain that I may have adopted some of those behaviors, but I really work to measure myself up against effective leadership, effective leaders, and try to be the closest to those models as I can be, like the leaders that are on with us today. Thank you, Kyra.
Dr. Bridget Bujak?
Thanks, Kyra. So I think if you ask my current staff what type of leadership style I had, they might describe it more as a flat leadership. At my current school, I really tried to build through consensus when it comes to major decisions. I tried to, as Dr. Nunez said, listen to understand and to be transparent in my thought process in decision making and getting all the stakeholders involved when making decisions that affect the whole school community. So in regards to my school setting, I think it is definitely a flat leadership. In regards to coaching my staff and teachers, I think I'm going to go with Dr. Coleman on the transformational leadership end. One of the best compliments I have received from my building rep was that I try to help teachers realize their best version of themselves when they come to work. And it was so powerful to me because I was like, really, I do. I think I'm messing up a lot, because there's a part of self-doubt in leadership and work sometimes when, things, get hard. And so it was really helpful for me to inspire me to keep going and trying to promote this idea of what is our individual best potential in this work and how do we get there and how do we progress monitor, what are our goal settings. And so just thinking along those lines of how to transform how we do this work. And so that's how I think I, help with my leadership style. And in regards to my male counterparts, I'm not sure if I specifically take on different traits, but I do really care about feelings and emotions. And I don't necessarily want to attribute that to a specific gender, but for me, I think that I personally take into consideration how decisions affect students, affect a school community, affect faculty. And I would just say that that's been an important part to me in this work. So thank you.
Dr. Koski?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of our leadership styles are, as Dr. Nunez said, it's just situational, and it really is complex and multifaceted. I agree about this notion of we work for people, right? And so, as a principal, I worked for my teachers, right? And as an assistant superintendent, I work for the principals, right? And so I think at every level of the organization, the leadership does change. I feel strongly, and same as Dr. Coleman Brown has shared, that you have to invest in people. And I think that it's just mission critical that we invest in people as a retention strategy, right? That when you develop others and you empower others, we're going to have a high level of retention for our children. And that's so important with continuity of education. So I really think that having this notion of investment, being collaborative, one of my teachers say you own what you help to create. So in almost every decision or every project, you have to value voice and bring voices together. And I too, there's yes, we can make decisions, and some decisions are really, really hard and fast because we have to, because it's in the best interest of the situation. But there are those decisions that really do need to take time to make sure that we think about all the different entities that the decision is going to make. In terms, and I love the question around, is it different than your male counterparts? As I read that, I do remember, again, I'm around a really long time and I'm very blessed by that notion. I do think of in growing up as a teacher, most principals were white males. And I think about how that has changed and how we have evolved as women, as persons of color, of gender, identity. So was leadership different? I think it was different growing up as a teacher. And I'm thankful that we've all learned how to lead better with a collaborative stance in mind.
Leading to my next question, did or do you have a mentor? How important is it to have a mentor to grow as a leader? Dr. Nunez?
Yes, yes, and yes, a mentor. Did I say yes? So for as long as I can remember, I've always had a mentor, right? I think it's so important for us to be surrounded by family and friends, right? That love you, care for you, and are there for you, and that you can always go to. But above and beyond that, I think it's pivotal, especially if you're thinking about leadership, to have mentors that are not family and friends, right? I call my mentors my critical thought partners, right? I think having a mentor that's not emotionally involved, like many of our family and friends, is pivotal. They keep you grounded. They will hold you accountable. And I do think that through this process, being a leader or in a leadership capacity, there are times that it could be very lonely. In my experience, there are times that I feel like I'm standing alone. I'm surrounded by a lot of people, right? But there have been moments where I feel alone. And, having a mentor that is not emotionally connected, ultimately you end up being emotionally connected, because if you're talking to this individual all the time, that's what happens. But having a mentor that has, where we've created a process or protocol where I can step back of who I am and what I've done, and really get me to a place where I can reflect on my actions or lack of actions, has proven to help me in my career, has proven in helping me make decisions that sometimes are clouded by so many things. I think as women, sometimes we tend to be a little emotional. My mentors, and I have a variety. I shared already that I believe in mentorship. My mentors are both women and males. I have some amazing mentors that are males, and their perspective sometimes is very different than my women mentors. So I think, again, to summarize, I highly recommend for folks that are looking into leadership to surround yourselves by mentors that will help you reflect, and that will help you think about, the decisions that you're making as you lead.
Dr. Coleman?
Yes, I have many mentors. Dr. Koski is one of my mentors. And I do believe that we live in an interconnected society, and we can't be the best society that we are destined to be without being interconnected. I believe that this work of educating across the city of Philadelphia is so important that no one should set out to do it alone, that you should be very intentional about connecting yourself with wise people. And maybe because, again, I'm from a 7-family, female family household, but most of my mentors are women, but women of many shades, and most of them are much older than I am. So, and I call them sometimes, not to be offended, but my old lady gang, they hold me down. They keep me true. They keep me grounded. And there are times, as Dr. Nunez mentioned, where, this work means so much to me that I become emotional about it. And those are the women I turn to them to let it all out, so that I can remain strong enough to do good work on behalf of the people that I serve. So I would say intentionally identify mentors that can help you do this work, because it definitely takes a village.
Kyra, before we move on, I if it's okay, Amelia Dr. Coleman just reminded me of one of my new mentors. The older I'm getting and the more I've been doing this work, I have found that I have 2 mentors that are by far younger than I am. Right? I think when I think about the work, especially in this role, and how it impacts high school students, right? While my adult mentors have been phenomenal, I have found that I needed to outreach. I needed feedback. I needed people to somewhat listen to what I'm thinking, that were much younger than I was and younger than my mentors, just to push my thinking. So just, again, Dr. Coleman talked about how her mentors, and many of mine historically were older as well. I love that wisdom. But I have found in the past 3 to 4 years, being intentional and surrounding myself by very wise young women and men to help process some of my thinking and some of the decisions that I'm making. So I do apologize for chiming back in.
It's fine. Dr. Bridget Bujak?
Thanks, Kyra. So I couldn't agree more that mentorship is so quintessential for a leadership journey and for anyone who's inspiring to be in leadership, because it's how you don't even realize, but how you start developing your thoughts and your style over time. And so over the years, I've had mentors at my 3 schools that I've worked at, in the school building, and also, outside as well. part of leadership journey to administration is going to graduate school. And so you can get mentorship there, which has been also instrumental in a search for excellence in this work. And so having that feedback over time has been really important to my journey. And I imagine important to many people's journeys to have that academic part along with, you know, being in the situational environment that you're in leadership. So I think it's so important to keep up with mentorship and having a diverse set of people and minds around you. Because if you only surround yourself with people that think like you can get yourself stuck. And so I find it's really important to branch out and to continue the process and grow. So I'm yay for leadership and mentorship.
Dr. Koski?
Oh, thank you. So one of my favorite quotes is from Michelle Obama, who says, "Find people who will make you better." Find people who will make you better. And I too have had many quote unquote mentors along the way, but I'm really thinking about like, what does it mean to be a mentor, right? And so is it someone just to be, as Dr. Nunez says, to be that critical friend, that thought partner? But I also think I grow when I am a mentor to someone else. And so I think this is like this two-way infusion of knowledge, sitting with Dr. Coleman Brown often. I'm now also mentoring another assistant superintendent who we now share the same office. And we meet every Monday from 3 to 3:30. And we just talk about leadership. We talk about policies. We talk about anything Board of Educations. We really think about and we process what it means when we see someone lead. And these 30 minutes a week, the two of us, has been really profound. And I said to this assistant superintendent, like, you're making me better. You're making me better. But by making me better, I'm hoping to make others better too, right? And so you really want to think the impact. Yes, it might sound a little bit, selfish that I'm getting better, but it really is that betterment helps us then lead better on behalf of that breadth of individuals from the 5-year-olds to the 20-year-olds in our schools. So yeah, I think it's important to have to mentor and to be mentored.
So my next question, what is the advice you would offer to women who want to grow in leadership roles? Dr. Nunez?
So what advice would I offer to women who want to grow into leadership roles? When I think about this question, I can't help but to think about a term that really refers to men supporting men. And the phrase or the term, and I want to say it's probably even in a Bible verse, and it talks about iron sharpening iron. When I think about women and leadership roles, right, all this notion that we've been talking about, mentoring and everything else, as women, we tend to be very competitive with each other. So when I think about what advice I want to give to other women is, right, we got to empower each other. We got to believe in each other. You got to believe in you, right? So it starts with that. Number one, keep the end in mind. Believe in yourself. Believe that whatever type of leader, in whatever arena you want to lead in, that you have the capacity to do it, right? And then in your journey, everything that we talked about this evening, surrounding yourself around the right people, believing in yourself, surrounding yourself around mentors, right? Particularly women. While it's great to have male mentors, it's important for you to have great women that believe in you, that are going to sharpen you, that are going to be critical friends, that are going to say, yes, I believe in that. We may want to rethink that, right? Or this is an area that we should be working on, right? That are going to be honest with you. And it's sort of like tough love, the same tough love that if you're a parent, you give your children. We have to do that to each other as women, right? So if you are interested in growing as a leader, as a woman, I say be grounded in that. Be grounded in believing in yourself. Be grounded in surrounding yourself around other women that are going to help you achieve that goal, and be ready to pay back. right? Because just when you arrive, there are going to be other women that you want to do that for.
Dr. Coleman?
Yeah. I think I would just like underscore all that Dr. Nunez emphasized. I definitely believe in iron sharpens iron. So you have to put yourself in a position to get sharper. I mentioned like experience is the best teacher. So intentionally put yourself in spaces where you can grow and learn from other leaders. And you learn from good and you learn from bad and you learn from that is indifferent. So always like take a learner stance, right? Just always remain curious and always be in a position, try to put yourself in a position to learn. But the last thing I would say is that I think this is also connected to positioning yourself to learn from others. If the more and the better and the more self-aware you are, the more you know you, right, and you trust you, you can put yourself out there to learn and grow with other people. The less you know of yourself, I think it's hard to form those trusting relationships, to be vulnerable in spaces. So I would say, be intentional about becoming self-aware. Like take the time to think about like, what do I value? What do I believe, right? How do I make decisions? Because I think that really allows you to accelerate, right, as a learner. And everything that Dr. Nunez said, like love on the women in your life. And just be intentional about being curious and being in relationship with other people, because that is the only way we will grow as a district and as a society.
Dr. Bridget Bujak?
I'm in total agreement with Dr. Nunez and Dr. Coleman. I feel like I might just add for me personally that I think it's really important to always have that search for excellence as part of this to help guide you along the way. I always talk about this in general in the work, because part of this is knowledge, right? Knowing what you're doing, learning about it, experiencing it, and then also finding inspiration in other leaders around you, and specifically in the female leaders around you. And so I know I've talked to Dr. Nunez about this before, but I was an assistant principal when she was the chief academic officer when I was at Alny. And it was so inspirational to see a strong, powerful woman who always had great shoes be in a leadership role and have and bring so much to the table and about instruction. And I learned so much from her leadership. And so again, along the way, I've had some great female leaders to inspired me to do this work. And so I think that's a part of this point. And also having really great female leadership that supports you. When I went to Penn, Dr. Koski was the first person that said to me, Bridget, congratulations for getting in the program. And so I think it's really important to surround yourself with strong women, smart women, and it helps you keep you grounded in work and also pushes you forward when you start to struggle. And so I would really say strive for excellence and get as much knowledge as you can and surround yourself with other smart, intelligent, powerful women.
Dr. Koski?
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Right? Good job. So, I guess the advice I say, always have that I talk about presence and posture, right? So have that presence and posture no matter what space you're in, and to really see who you are, see the many gifts that you have. I'm constantly reflecting and assessing myself, and really trying to always push myself to be better. And I'm thankful. Dr. Nunez pushes me. I worked for many people, and she has really pushed me in such a wonderful way to really be a person who strives for even the greater excellence. And so I thank you for that, Dr. Nunez, for making me think hard and fast every single day. But demonstrate your strengths with grace and kindness. I think that having that something that my mother instilled in me, just be kind, be good, right? And just be you. And the last thing I'll say, I've shared this with many of you in my day-to-day, just keep a running record of all that you do, like journal, get a leadership journal, and just take note of all the experiences that you are doing, that you have, what went well, and just keep that running record of all the leadership, whether you're a leader of your classroom as a teacher or a leader in your family. What skills that you have, what areas that you need to grow on. Just be that reflective practitioner to get better and smarter, and just be you. I just bought my granddaughter the book I Am Enough, right? I just actually saw it at Munoz Marin. I mean, it is one of the best books I've ever read. I am enough, but even being that enough, we can get even to be a better enough. So I wish all of those the best who have another journey to aspire to, or it's okay to just be who you are.
Thank you so much, ladies. I think we have time for maybe one more question. So I know, Kyra, you have it in your queue, so we'll go ahead and let you give us that last question before we conclude.
Okay, so my last question. How do you balance your career, personal life, and passion? Is there such thing as a balance? Dr. Nunez?
So I'm laughing because one of my mentors, when I was offered the position of chief of schools, he said to me, Evelyn, I know you've been a leader for a very long time, but there's one thing I need you to embrace. I was like, what was that? What is it? He said, welcome to the world. You will never be done. Welcome to the world of you will never be done. And I'm like, what does that mean? It means that you're never going to be done. You can work 14, 15, 16, 22 hours. The next day when you come to work, guess what? You're not done. So whether you put in 9 hours or 15 hours, the end result is going to be the same. You're never going to be done. So what that means is that it has taught me that I have to be balanced, right? If I can't master balancing my life, and my life means my personal life, right? To be around those that I love, right? My professional life, because I want to be successful in my job, right? And the one thing, and then there's some things you want to do just because you like them. But separate from that, I think in the last 2 years, we learned a lot about is time for myself, that self-care. If you can't effectively balance that, that is going to ultimately have an impact on how you show up as a leader, no matter what role you serve. So I think that for the most part, I try to balance that. I am more successful some weeks, more than others, but I do try to keep that at the forefront to be able to balance my work, my personal life, right, and time for me. And I can tell you that I've scripted to Dr. Koski's point, right? Dr. Koski and I talk about this a lot. I've scripted, right, what I've done. And when I can tell you that I am by far much more effective in my job when I step away from it and take care of myself and those around me. So it is something very difficult for us to do, especially as women, where we are nurturers, right? Before used to be, you got to have a balanced life of work and personal. But as women, that personal is like another job because most of that is taking care of others. So I've made it a point to also find time for myself. And again, as a woman, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister and best friend, sometimes I feel guilty that I say no to everybody that I love because I need time for me. But at the end, it does make you a better person, a better leader. So it is important for you to learn how to balance all those aspects of life.
Dr. Coleman?
Yeah, definitely when you know better, you do better. And I think women of 2022, we know that you have to be intentional about carving out time for you. And I think two things that Dr. Nunez said resonate with me is one, when this work is your passion, you can easily forget to carve out time for yourself. So you have to really be intentional about that. And I don't think when you become a system leader, it's really hard to have like equal buckets. Like, like work typically it dominates your time. But I think you have to be intentional about setting aside quality time for you. And as a woman, it can be, like to Dr. Nunez's point, personal time, your family time becomes that is not your you time. That is their time. That's you being woman, being great. But I think I know that you have to definitely carve out intentional time for yourself. And I do it. I'm a list maker. Every day I do the same thing. I sit and I write my list for the day. Of course, work dominates my list, but I always set aside at least 30 minutes. Sometimes I try to do more, at least 30 minutes of something that is of quality to me so that I can stay strong and strengthened. And as a system leader, you know that each seasons are different. Right now, we are in the throes of budgets. So this is like people know, like, this is what I do, budget, dissertation, that this is what I'm doing, but it won't always be that way. And I think that is also part of helping to have other people respect your time as well, like message it. I think we used to hold things in before 2022 came. Now we talk about like, this is my life.
Dr. Bridget Bujak.
So for me, I try to take it day by day, week by week, month by month. For me, it's really important to try to figure out, prioritize what I need to get done in the day, and then, have definitely time to decompress. And, I think the question is, there's such a thing as balance. I'm going to try to get on Dr. Nunez's level and take that advice. And, but I think that's acquired over time and experience. And so I'm working, it's a life goal of mine to figure out, how does that balance really look in my life? So that's a struggle for me personally. And I think that I do my very best to balance career, family and friends, and self-care. And I think the pandemic and whatnot has really taught us that self-care is really important. Our mental health is important, and taking care of ourselves as individuals, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of others. And so that is part of the balance that I strive for every day, and making sure I try to carve out some of that time. Thank you.
Dr. Koski.
Thank you. So I think a work-life balance is really about sharing the commitment of the work with others that you love. It's really communicating to family, to friends. And again, I think it's also situational. As Dr. Coleman Brown said, we're in budget now, and so it's like almost an 18-hour day. But I really do believe, as long as you pay it forward and share with those you love, both professionally and personally, that you're in this zone that work is really consuming our lives, well, that's okay too, right? So I think that all of us share this work ethic because of our mothers, that we had a strong work ethic, and it's not going to leave us at this point in our lives, right? And so, but I also believe that as we do, again, as my colleagues, those around me, you also need to take time for yourself. And so I have a meeting with myself, and I share that stance. So once a week, I will shut the door, zoom out, and have a meeting with myself in terms of, what did I accomplish this week, what I need to do better next week. And then I also have, since the pandemic, bought myself a treadmill, and I'm on that treadmill for an hour every single night. I don't miss an hour a night. I'm still watching, I'll be watching the town hall in a minute, right? So right after this, I'm going to zoom out and watch the town hall. But certainly that time on the treadmill is really important to me, and it really allows me to decompress, listen to a podcast, maybe watch Family Feud. But certainly, I think it's really important for all of us as leaders, as women, especially to take that hour, because as Dr. Nunez said, we are so nurturing and caring for others. Not that others aren't, or other genders aren't, or those who identify aren't, but yeah, it's around sharing our passion with others, our commitment to work, but also taking time for ourselves so we can do better for others as well. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Very, very powerful words spoken, lots of wisdom shared today. Dr. Koski, that commitment of being on the bike an hour. Yes, that's good. I need to take that in as a part of my regimen. But thank you all again for sharing all of your experiences and your wisdom, your lessons learned, and even those words of inspiration. We are very much inspired by you all as leaders within our district. I would like to also thank Kyra Graham, again, who is representing Kensington Kappa, for her great facilitation with tonight's panel. You can follow K-Kappa if you like, K-Kappa High School on Instagram. And of course, want to say thank you to those who have joined us tonight via Zoom, as well as thank you to those who will be watching this once it airs again on our social media platforms. We'll have this available through our DEI office YouTube website for your convenience, as well as other social media platforms. So stay tuned for more. If you'd like to register for more of the panels honoring Women's History Month events, please make sure that you click the Google form that's in the chat. This is also an opportunity to hear more updates about what's going on in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. There is a link in the chat for that as well. And we will continue to share these phenomenal messages. I do want to also just give some praise and love to the phenomenal team that's been putting these panels together. You know, like everything, there is always a great work of folks behind the work that you see. So I want to just give a shout out to those individuals as well. We have 2 minutes. As we close, I'd like to give our panelists the last words. So I'm going to read a sentence, and I would like you to finish that sentence with one word. Ready? Being a woman in leadership at the School District of Philadelphia means being, and you can jump in however you like.
Leaner.
That's for our panelists. Dr. Nunez, can we start with you?
Yes, first word that came to mind was brave.
All right. Dr. Bujak?
Strong.
Dr. Koski? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Impactful.
And Dr. Coleman Brown.
Committed.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all for joining us. Have a blessed night. See you soon.